Reno on fire. This is the Get Your Ass to Work podcast, episode 71. In this last weekend, Reno was on fire in downtown as looters and protesters got violent and turned it towards local businesses here in town. I just don't understand that part. It's like people are making this comparison to, say, the Boston Tea Party, where they're like, oh, rioting and looting is as American as apple pie. Because look at what people did at the Boston Tea Party. You know what? The people of the Boston Tea Party went out and dumped tea into the Boston Harbor because it directly affected the British people who were under the Americans' ideology. We're saying that this is taxation without representation. And mind you, as the story goes, I wasn't there at the Boston Tea Party, but as the story goes, they dumped the tea and they actually cleaned up after they were done. They did not loot. Nobody was stealing things off the ships. In fact, there is a story of somebody trying to steal something and they were reprimanded immediately. That is not the same thing. And it was directed directly at the British and their finances. And so the British were the enemy and that affected the British. Here, you've got people pissed off at police, but then you go burn down your neighbor's home and vandalize his car. How the fuck does that make sense? Well, let me tell you, it doesn't. People using this as an excuse to run around town like a bunch of fucking animals, do a bunch of graffiti, bash in windows, and try to steal a bunch of free shit. That does not belong to them. No, the Boston Tea Party and the Reno riots over this last weekend and the riots across America, they do not compare. There is no correlation. The people, the rioters, have attacked the wrong people. You know what would have made more sense? Not that I even condone this one bit, but had they only vandalized police cars, government buildings, police stations, and police officers. Had that happened, I'd be like, wow, that's really targeted. They are really going after the people and the organizations they feel are responsible. I could actually see that as somewhat logical, although it's still the wrong thing to do. This is like, oh, the government is mean to me. Well, I'm going to go fuck up my neighbor's house and burn his house down, even though he probably agrees with me that whatever happened shouldn't have happened. And that is exactly what was going on here in Reno as they broke into buildings, broke into City Hall, stole things, stole from Patagonia. It was downright embarrassing. And watching the people on the news as the newscast went on for hours, just the worst people you could possibly imagine. These are not people you would want to associate with. These were not like working professionals out protesting and it kind of turned violent. These were just basically punks and thugs using it as an excuse to go downtown and screw things up for the people who were at least peacefully protesting. And maybe peacefully isn't the right word, but it was non-destructive to people who had nothing to do with the police and their problems. And it's like not even that the Reno police had anything to do with it, but they're the ones who, you know, they're police officers and they as a whole represent the police of the United States. I could see how people are going to take out their anger on the police. It's not right, but I could see that part. Instead, they just go bash in a bunch of windows and cause a bunch of our own citizens damage, which is total bullshit. But there's a big divide that you have to be on one side or the other. And it's either you are okay with people protesting and rioting. Basically, you're okay because you understand why people are going to go bash in windows because they're so angry and nobody's listening to them. That's the only way they can get attention. You're either on that side or you are racist and you are for cops killing innocent black people. And that's the divide that I see on Facebook, which is total bullshit. I don't know where ever in the history have people just generally been okay with anybody rioting, stealing shit from your neighbor, vandalizing and burning their car, and people being like, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's okay. Never seen that situation before. But in this case, you either have to be okay with that as a way for people to show that they're oppressed, or you're a racist and you're this or you're that, which is crap, because here's the truth. Most people were already on board with what that cop did was wrong, and they're also on board with smashing people's shit, innocent people, is not the right thing to do. In fact, it kind of reminds me of bin Laden. So how did that work out for bin Laden in the end? Not very good. What did they do? Well, they were pissed off at what the U.S. government were doing, and I don't know exactly all the specifics, but they're pissed off at what the U.S. does to people of their countries. So bin Laden gets the idea of, let's go fly planes into the World Trade Center and kill a bunch of innocent people. And what did that do? Well, it got them wars and cost them a whole bunch of basically their people's lives, which they're willing to give anyway, and eventually they killed bin Laden. So, starting out with violence really isn't going to work out. I don't see how it's going to work out for these people, but the divide, we saw it with the COVID virus. We saw people trying to say either you are for the shutdown and keeping businesses shut down, or you're supposed to be the person who, if you get the virus, can't go to the hospital. You're either open to just dying if you get the virus, because that's what you have to be, if you're not for completely shutting down the economy. You can't be for both. You can't be for safe practices and opening the economy. You have to be for one or the other, because people are constantly trying to divide people into a political spectrum based on who you voted for is most likely which side you were on. And the two sides that I've seen is you're either for the rioting and you understand why people are rioting and you're okay with it under this circumstance, being on the liberal side. You're either for shutting down the economy and keeping it shut down as long as possible until a vaccine happens, was on the liberal side, or you're on the other side, the conservative side, the Republican side, the evil side, whatever, Trump side, which is you're for opening the economy and you are not for rioting. And it's so strange, because I think most people are just for both. I think most people are for, okay, well, let's be safe and social distance and let's get stores back open, because we all need to eat and survive and, pay our employees if you're a business owner, or get a paycheck if you have a family. I think everyone was like, hey, that is fucked up what that cop did. They need to go to trial and be prosecuted. And it's also not okay to go burn down your neighbor's house. But people see it different. So my idea is I'm just going to stay off social media, because every time I open that thing up, it just pisses me off with the stupidity of the comments and the memes, and just all the bullshit is so far-fetched and it is so far one way or another that I just can't deal with it anymore. We'll see you guys next week.